Good morning, class. Our topic for today is all about motor behavior, motor control, motor development, and motor learning. But before we start our discussion, please read our objectives for this lesson.
Objectives. At the end of the lesson, students should be able to understand the importance of motor behavior, identify the meaning of motor control, motor learning, and motor development, create a motor behavior movement, and explain what type of movement.
Thank you. So our objectives for these lessons is at the end of the lesson, students should be able to understand the importance of motor behavior and identify the meaning of motor control, motor development, and motor learning, create a motor behavior movement, and explain what type of movement. So let's proceed to our discussion. So class, what is motor behavior? Anyone? Yes, please?
Motor behavior is the study of how we produce movements.
Okay, thank you. So motor behavior is a study of how we produce movement. So motor behavior is how we produce movements. That is the time when how to move or how we act, how to do our action. So that is motor behavior. So in motor behavior, there are types of movements. Can you please give me some example? One example. Yes?
Gait.
Another one. Yes?
Balance.
Another one. Yes?
Reflexes.
One. Yes?
Reaching.
Lastly is grasping.
Grasping.
So, in motor behavior, there is a psychological and neurophysiological investigations that are divided into three disciplines. They are the motor control, motor development, and motor learning. So, class, what is motor control? Can you please read?
Motor control is the study of postures and movements and the mechanism that underlie them. Also, motor control can be defined as the study of how an individual can execute designated motor skills through the neuromuscular control process in response to external environmental demands.
Thank you. So, motor control is the study of postures and movements and the mechanism that underlie them. Also, the motor control can be defined as the study of how an individual can execute designated motor skills through neuromuscular control process in response to external environmental demands. So in motor control, this is the time when how we control our movements or how we control our postures or actions. So for example, you were playing a badminton. So in badminton, you need to control your hand to play badminton to get the shuttlecock by using your hand and holding the badminton racket, and that is motor control. Next is the motor development. So motor development refers to development of a child's bones, muscles, and ability to move around and manipulate his or her environment. So motor development can be divided into two sections. That is gross motor development and the fine motor development. So in motor development is how we develop our ability, our movements, our muscles, our bones, and etc. That is how we develop our skills. So that is motor development. So in motor development, there are two sections. They are the gross and fine motor development. So in gross motor development, it involves the development of the large muscles in the child's body. These muscles allows us to sit, stand, walk, run, and all among other activities. So this is the time when how to play, how to run, how to stand, how to sit. This is the time, or this stage is This development is the how we learn or how we develop our muscles on playing or running. So that is the gross motor development. And the fine motor development is involves in small muscles of the body, especially in using hands. So example for this is eating, sketching, writing, painting, but using your small or your hands lang. So that is fine motor development. Next is the motor development also involves how well children's muscles work. This is referred to as muscle tone. So children need a balanced muscle tone in order to develop their muscles and use them with ease when standing, sitting, rolling, walking, running, swimming, and all other postures and actions. So in motor development also involves the child's vestibular and proprioceptive systems. Both of these are the parts of sensory or child sensory system. So the vestibular system is located in the inner ear and allows the body to maintain balance. So in vestibular system is how we is in the inner ear, or how we hear, how we sense. So that is vestibular system. In proprioceptive system, it involves the inner ear, the muscles, joints, and tendons. It allows the body to understand where it's located. And maintaining balance and posture and having coordinated movements are only possible if the proprioceptive system is functioning well. Did you understand, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So next is the motor learning. Motor learning has been defined as a set of internal process associated with practice or experience leading to relatively permanent changes in the capability for skilled behavior. In other words, motor learning is when complex processes in the brain occur in response to practice or experience of a certain skill, resulting in changes in central nervous system that allow for production of a new motor skills. So motor learning this is the time when how we learn or how we catch or how we get some knowledge or learn to on a specific skill. So that is motor learning. So there are 3 stages of motor learning. There are the cognitive stage, the associative stage, and the autonomous stage. So the first stage is the cognitive stage. So cognitive stage is the initial stage of motor learning. The goal is to develop on our overall understanding of the skill. The learner must determine what the objective of the skill is and begin to process environmental factors that will affect their ability to produce the skill. The teacher must do their best to provide an optimal environment for learning, which may mean removing large distractors during the stage. During this stage, the learner most relies on visual inputs and trial and error to guide learning. So in cognitive stage, this is the initial stage. This is the time when how to understand the specific skill. So example, before your children masters walking, they will most likely look a bit awkward and will definitely stumble a few times. The reality is that the being process of learning how to walk begins way before your child actually takes their first assistant or independent step, as they have been visually observing others around them walking and beginning to understand the purpose. So while they may look clumsy during this stage of learning, they are only just beginning to transition from understanding the skill to executing it. So that is example of a child or a toddler. on how they are practicing or how they learn to walk. Because sometimes some toddlers or some children, small children, are practicing how to walk. As you can see, as a toddler, you are awkward. You are not. When you are practicing, you are awkward because you felt that I can I can do this, or I learned something, or I learned another skill. But we are basing our exam. But we are basing in sports. So, for example, in sports. For example, in sports. So, cognitive stage is in sports, you were you were dreaming to be one of the volleyball players, one of the famous volleyball players, right, in your school. And then you don't know how to play. You don't know how to serve, you don't know how to attack, you don't know how to spike or etc. But because of your willingness, you want to learn. So in cognitive stage, first is you need to learn how to play or how to serve a ball in volleyball. And next is how to attack. Okay? So that is cognitive stage. Next is the associative stage. So this stage is the learner begins to demonstrate a more refined movement through practice. Now that the learner has had some practice and has identified various stimuli that may occur, they can focus on how to do, moving on from what to do. In the first stage, here visual cues becomes less important and proprioceptive cues becomes very important. Proprioceptive cues refer to the learner focusing more on how their body is moving in space and what input is being felt from their joints and muscles. The more practice, the more proprioceptive input the learner receives to aid learning. Therefore, the more practice, the better. For example, let's continue with walking, or forget the example of toddlers or children, but we will proceed to our first example. If you want to be a famous volleyball player in your school. So, if you want to play volleyball in cognitive stage, you need to learn how to serve and how to attack your opponent. So, in this associative stage, you already know how to play. You are now already know how to demonstrate or how to serve, how to attack, how to spike your opponents or the ball on your opponent. So this is the associative stage because you're now learning. Because of your willingness, you are now learning and feel better. It's because you already know how to play. Diba? So you know already how to play, you know already how to serve, and because of your passion that you want to be a volleyball player, you need to practice and train. And after that, because of your passion of being volleyball, you became better. So next stage is the autonomous stage. This stage is the final stage of motor learning. So the motor skills becomes mostly automatic. Progression to this level of learning allows the learner to perform the skill in any environment with very little cognitive involvement compared to the first stage. So this is the time na you know already how to play volleyball. You know how to serve. You already know how you have the knowledge, you have the skill, you have the ability to learn those skill in volleyball, especially the techniques. Because of your because of you want to know this ability, you want to know this skill, you know already how to play. And you already get your goal. So this is the time you uh, perform the skills better than the first stage. Okay? So next is, did you get it, class?
Yes, ma'am.
So class, keep in mind that learning processes can take different lengths of time. For every individual and progression can be dependent on a variety of factors such as motivation of the learner, feedback to receive, environmental stimuli, organization of practice, and the presence of musculoskeletal or neuromuscular impairments. Next is the 5 characteristics of motor learning. So these are the 5 characteristics of motor learning. So the first one is, please read.
Motor learning is an internal process that cannot be observed from an external perspective. This means that how much an athlete has learned is an unknown factor from an outsider's perspective because motor learning takes place inside the learner's brain, and the muscular movements are only a reflection of brain activities. Observing motor performance provides only an indirect assessment of the learning progress of a learner.
Okay, thank you. So the first is motor learning is an internal processes that cannot be observed from an external perspective. So this means that how much an athlete has learned is an unknown factors from outsider's perspective because motor learning takes place inside the learner's brain and the muscular movements are only a reflection of brain activities. Observing motor performance provides only an indirect assessment of learning progress of the learner. So next characteristic is motor learning is a set of processes for the purpose of reaching specific learning objectives. Obviously, different types of learning will produce different results. And sports scientists continuously search for the best motor learning process for particularly motor skills based on individual references or differences. Next is the third characteristics. The goal of motor learning is to form a designated motor behavioral habits through proper training. So this is the time on how to catch your goal, or if you are playing or you have a passion to catch your goal, to achieve your goal rather, is you have your behavioral habits or discipline yourself and join in a proper training. Next is the fourth is once the motor skills is learned, it becomes relatively permanent and will not be easily forgotten. For example, let's continue for example. You are now a MVP player or you are a volleyball player in your school, and because of that, because of your ability or because your passion of being a volleyball player, you will never forget how to play. Okay? Hindi mo siya makakalimutan kung paano maglaro ng volleyball. Like, nandyan na siya sa isip nyo. Alam nyo na kung paano maglaro. So, that is the time ko na yung mga gusto nyong sports, tapos alam nyo na kung paano laruin, yan yung hindi nyo na makakalimutan. So, the fifth characteristic, let's proceed. According to Wang and Yang, 2012, motor learning is not value-free, and it can be negative to form a bad habit that is extremely hard to be changed once it is formed. So, not all the time that motor learning is always free, and it's always in a positive habit. Also, there is a negative bad habit. Okay? Then if this is would be if the bad habit would be started, it never changed at all. Okay? Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So next is, and the last topic is the motor performance. So motor performance is an end result or outcome of executive motor skill that can be observed from an external perspective. So this is the time na how can we, or how you perform the motor skill, or how you perform the specific sport, or how you perform your ability. So this is the time na makikita na natin kung ano yung performance ninyo. So, on how you execute, or if you are in a proper execution and you are now in a better performing or performance. So, did you get it, class? Did you understand this topic?
Yes, ma'am.
No questions or clarifications?
No, ma'am.
Very good. So, now let's go to our group activity. Are you ready? So, let me group you into 3 groups and I want you to make